Very excited now to be joined by our friend of the show, Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for coming back.
Great to be with you.
I wish it was under better circumstances. We did, of course, want to turn to you for a bigger picture of what this all means. Let's go ahead and first start with our first element. Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu saying the quiet part out loud. He says, in bombing Iran, Israel has now the assistance of the United States, my friend, President Donald Trump, and the U.S. military. This coalition of forces allows us to do what I've yearned to do for 40 years. 40 years, it's a dream that the Prime Minister had, despite all of the alleged pretexts about preemptive attacks, nuclear strikes, ballistic missiles. This is something that has been in the heart of the Bibi Netanyahu project. I just was wondering if you could react to that and frame your general thoughts around this entire regional war that has now erupted.
I hadn't seen that quote, but if he said it, what an asshole he is. I've been saying that for years, that this is his dream, his campaign. I've put it at 30 years since 1996, a doctrine called clean break, which was a madman's document of a madman, Bibi Netanyahu, and his arch neocon extremist Zionist advisors in 1996 that basically was the blueprint for nonstop war in the Middle East. And now Netanyahu says what I've been saying. When I've been saying it, people have sometimes scoffed. But, now I know it's a 40-year plan, not just a 30-year plan. The man is a psychopath. And this is the reality of it. We have been roped into endless war by these extreme Zionists. And we're now in an ever greater escalation to full regional war for the purpose of Israeli hegemony in the Middle East. Of course, it aligns with the madmen in Washington and Langley who want U.S. hegemony in the world. But that's what this is about. They don't count how many schoolgirls are dead. They couldn't care less. That's the whole point. There's nothing in this about the dead. This is all madmen's delusions.
Let's go and put up E2 on the screen here. So Trump is saying now he wants to talk to the Iranians after assassinating, their supreme leader and bombing their country and starting this war. He told The Atlantic, quote, "They want to talk. I've agreed to talk, so I will be talking to them." On the contrary, though, it does not appear that the Iranians want to talk for understandable reasons, especially after we used diplomacy now multiple times in a row as a ruse in order to attack their country. But what do you make of this outreach from President Trump and also the relative silence from the administration after launching this war?
Trump's crazy. He may even believe this, but he's crazy, or he's psychopathic, or it's what's called the dark triad personality, extreme Machiavellianism, inability to understand anything, murder the other side and say, we love you. That's his approach. It's completely spiraling out of control. I don't think he's the only agent of this, by the way. I think this is the CIA long-standing effort. It's what Netanyahu said. Again, I'm better informed this morning, thanks to you. It's 40 years, not 30 years. I always put it at a 30-year effort. But we have gone to war in Libya, Sudan, Somalia, occupied Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Iran for this extremist, delusional purpose. And what have we gotten out of it? Millions dead, but we're not supposed to count the dead. Trillions of dollars of loss. Chaos from Libya to Iran. I mean chaos. A region across the entire North Africa, Horn of Africa, and the Middle East in chaos because of this insane Zionism. and the U.S. complicity in it and the delusions of control. How many wars will we get into? But, you know, interestingly, 2 points. One, the American people see through this entirely. They're completely against this. Trump, well, to say that Trump lied is to sound like an idiot. Of course, Trump lies every time he opens his mouth. But his campaign was about not doing exactly this. But he's a puppet. He's a puppet of the CIA and a puppet of Miriam Edelman and a puppet of Bibi Netanyahu. So he's a puppet or blackmailed or something. So this is one point. The American people are completely against this. And as the Gallup poll showed last Friday, the American people are on the side of the Palestinians. Both make complete sense. This is a madhouse. This is not in any remote way rational, deliberate, legal, honest, aimed at our security. It's aimed at the delusion of complete control.
Yeah, and
well,
yeah,
you can't control the world this way.
Right.
Madmen have tried for millennia. We're just the latest in this, but it comes to a very bad end.
And I think that we're seeing that all right now, especially with people like Lindsey Graham at the forefront. Why don't we take a listen to his comment about what the future of Iran should look like? Sounds a lot like what we have had in store for Iraq. Let's take a listen.
In a social media post Sunday, President Trump wrote this, quote, "Hopefully the IRGC and police will peacefully merge with the Iranian patriots and work together as a unit to bring back the country to the greatness it deserves." Is hope the plan for the future of Iran?
No, the future of Iran is going to be determined by the Iranian people. The new Iran, whatever it is, whether it's a cleric or a representative democracy, our goal is to make sure it cannot become, again, the largest state sponsor of terrorism. That's a win for us.
But is there a plan to make sure that happens, Senator? Is there a plan? Does the president have a plan to guarantee that that happens?
No, it's not his job or my job to do this. How many times do I have to tell you? Our job is to make sure Iran is no longer the largest state sponsor of terrorism, to help the people reconstruct a new government, no boots on the ground. We don't own, you know, this idea you break it, you own it. I don't buy that one bit. It's in America's interest to make sure the Ayatollah is dead. He's dead.
He doesn't buy that you break it, you own it. He says, dodges the question there about any sort of plan that's currently in place. As you were saying earlier, it seems now like a literal madhouse in this government. Literally, sir, while you were talking, I just have to read you this quote from the Secretary of Defense. "This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change." This is what we're dealing with now, currently.
Yeah, as Secretary of War, I have to correct you. We don't have defense.
Sorry. I said Secretary of Defense, but yeah.
we have war.
Yeah.
Well, I've spent decades along with bemoaning Bibi Netanyahu and Clean Break, thinking that Lindsey Graham is the stupidest person in Washington, the most vile. That's a very tough competition, by the way. But that man has never opened his mouth in 30 years without wanting more deaths of other people. And now he also says so clearly, no responsibility. I would like the American people to understand, I'm sure that they do, but just to clarify, we have been meddling in and destroying Iran now for 73 years actively. It was in 1953 that the CIA and MI6 overthrew the democratically elected and popular government of Prime Minister Mossadegh. They did it because Mossadegh had the complete audacity to say that the oil in Iran should belong to the Iranian people. This was far too much for Alan Dulles at the CIA and for MI6, who knew full well that the oil in Iran belongs to Britain and to the United States. So they overthrew him. In that case, there was a quote, successful regime change operation, which put in place a police state, the state led by the puppet, the Shah of Iran. In 1979, he was overthrown in a mass revulsion against decades of an American-imposed police state, and this government came into power. Immediately, the United States armed Iraq to kill hundreds of thousands of Iranians in the Iraq-Iran war between 1980 and 1988. Saddam Hussein was our guy. He was the CIA's guy. Of course, when the CIA is done with you, they kill you. So Saddam became the worst enemy of the United States soon afterwards, after he had done the bidding of the United States for years. Since then, it has been, actually now I know it's since 1986, it's been Bibi Netanyahu's dream to overthrow the Iranian government. I always counted it as 1996. But the United States has been using every subterfuge, covert operation. It has been using assassinations, economic warfare, crushing the Iranian economy ever since. The Iranians have said all that time they don't want a nuclear weapon. Bibi Netanyahu, who is a psychopath, said in 1996 they're weeks away, days away, months away. And he's been saying that for 30 years. For all I know, he's been saying it for 40 years. He is a vulgar, blatant, genocidal liar. I hope I'm being clear. We're dealing with something absolutely dangerous in this world that is running our country. So it's extremely dangerous. The Iranians did not want a nuclear weapon. The religious leader who they just assassinated was the one that said, no nuclear weapons, it's against Islam. So kill him. It had nothing to do with nuclear weapons all this time. The Iranians reached out constantly to negotiate. And in 2015, they concluded an agreement with the United States, Britain, France, Russia, China, and Germany, the P5 countries plus one, called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And it put Iran strictly under UN supervision in the International Atomic Energy Agency. Bibi Netanyahu had a fit because he wanted to overthrow the government. He did not want peaceful relations with a non-nuclear Iran. So Donald Trump, who is a puppet of our CIA, Mossad, and Miriam Adelson and the rest, ripped up the JCPOA in 2018. That's the story. Then they bombed one of Iran's nuclear facilities. And by the way, during the period from 2015 to 2018, Iran stuck with the agreement, even though the United States cheated on the agreement that it signed because it was supposed to end the US sanctions, which it did not do. Then Trump ripped it up. Then they began a campaign of assassinations. Then they began bombing Iran's nuclear facilities. And that's the story. They don't want an agreement. Last year, they negotiated, and then in the middle of the negotiations, bombed Iran. This year, again, they negotiated, and then bombed Iran. You might ask, why did Iran come back to the negotiating table this time after the falsity last time? I'll tell you why. It's a little strange. It's a little weird. But nobody behaves as badly as the United States. So it's very hard to calibrate when there is a government that says we're negotiating, when they bring in a mediator, in this case, Oman, when the US negotiators, Witkoff and Kushner, say, oh, we're making progress. It's hard for other people to calibrate the evil that's under it. This was a premeditated war, and the negotiations are a pretext. So this is what's happening. It's amazing. It's you don't see this anywhere else in the world. By the way, at the emergency meeting of the UN Security Council that I attended on Saturday, you see how we're in the looking glass because one country after another attacked Iran for its violence. Even Bahrain called it unprovoked attack by Iran. Well, it's actually easy to do the scorecard. If your country hosts the US military, first of all, it means that you also host the CIA. It means you are an occupied country. And so everyone that spoke against Iran is an occupied country by the United States. These are not independent countries. When we listen to Merz or to Macron or to the Danes or to the British, the US military and CIA is all over those countries and has been for decades. These are not independent voices. These are part of the vassal states of the empire. This empire is destroying itself in its bloodiness, its bloody-mindedness, its murders, its wars, its debts, the trillions of dollars we're spending in this. But this is an empire that is behaving so shockingly that others actually can't calibrate. They don't understand that negotiation means we will come to murder you. And that the best thing is we will murder your religious leader.
Let me go ahead and put E5 up on the screen to your point about the Gulf allies here. So there was a Saudi analyst who went on Al Jazeera and told them, quote, America has abandoned us and focused its defense systems on protecting Israel, leaving the Gulf states that host its military bases at the mercy of Iranian missiles and drones. And we have seen some impacts throughout the region, including, unbelievable images in Dubai, which is, of course, a playground of the global rich, where some of the luxury hotels have been hit. I can scarcely wrap my head around the level of, damage, brand damage, and economic damage that will be done over the long term. What do you make of these comments and potentially a reassessment that is being done here by the Saudis as they see that the U.S.'s number one priority is ourselves and the Israelis?
Well, I would refer them to two observations. First, by President John F. Kennedy. In his inaugural address, he said those who would ride on the back of the tiger often find themselves inside it. In other words, you ride on the back of a violent empire, you become a victim. So the Saudis have known full well. They host U.S. military bases. The Gulf countries host U.S. military bases. The behavior of the United States is brazen and illegal. So this is what comes. I would also cite Henry Kissinger's famous adage that to be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. So these countries need to grow up. They need to understand. Does the Arab world want to be a vassal of the United States? I don't think so. Does that provide them security? I don't think so. And incidentally, the damage to an entrepot like Dubai is devastating. This is supposed to be the place where it's safe to bring your family, to bring your money, to come for vacation, not to be in a hotel that is bombed. This will have a very, very long shadow on the region. But that is the miscalculation that these countries have made. They've watched the United States and Israel commit a genocide in Gaza. They were quiet because they're occupied. They think this is safe. This is not safe. The safety in our world is to speak the truth. It's not to go along with the brazen evil of power.
Finally, I'm just curious for how you think, we talked there about the UN Security Council. There's been a lot of big talk by the President of Canada or the Prime Minister of Canada. The New World Order is changing. He immediately supports the regime change war with Iran. You just talked here about the vassal states of Europe. For how long are their populations going to put up with this? We just did a segment about blowback specifically across the entire Middle East, including a possible terrorist attack right here on our own country, reminiscent of many of the scenes from the war in Iraq and the so-called global war on terror. Do you think this is going to be a prolonged kind of earth-shaking geopolitical movement, or is there any point at all for us to be able to pull back from the brink and Trump can just falsely declare victory and move on? Or is just the genie out of the bottle completely?
I just want to point out that a momentous event last week, which seems like a different world because it is, was when the German Chancellor, Merz, went to China. And there were clips of him watching the Chinese robots performing. Mm-hmm. He was watching something the United States can't do, Europe can't do. He was watching a country that is at peace and that is moving forward technologically, that is investing, that is at the frontier of technology. And the United States, in the meantime, is mass murdering people, killing people, running a budget deficit of 7% of GDP, and can't keep our goddamn infrastructure working at all. You come back to any American infrastructure, any airport, nothing works. Not the escalators, not the elevators, not the walkways, nothing works. Our government is half shut down. So the reality is we are doing ourselves in this way under this quest for global hegemony. That's the real story here, how self-destructive this is. By the way, how much Trump lied every word about claiming that he was going to stop this.
Yep.
He didn't stop it at all. He just opened up the floodgates of more killing.
Professor Sachs, thank you as always for your insights. We're really grateful for your time this morning.
Thank you, sir.